Welcome to this episode of Hampton Roads Business Live. My name is Rory Graham, and my guest today is Paul Hardy from Recovery for Life. And I had a chance to speak with him, and I think you're going to find this very interesting. Great conversation we had. I had not heard of Recovery for Life.
Right.
And it's wonderful work that you all do. And I'm looking forward to talking to you about that. Can you give us an overview of what Recovery for Life does? Because it does a lot of things.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny because a lot of people say that we're Hampton Roads' best kept secret.
Right, right. You know, well, really, I had not heard of it for as much as you all do. So.
We were founded in 1998. My wife and I started working with a couple of addicts who had heroin and cocaine issues. And so we decided to work with the whole family. So what happened from that was we began with these two couples. Before we knew it, we had 20 or 30 people, and then we had 40 or 50. So today, 16 years later, we have about 200 people a week coming into our meetings. And these are 12-step meetings where people come in for drugs, alcohol, or family members and other issues related to them. And that's our kind of the mothership, kind of what we do. Mm-hmm. And so that's where people are constantly coming and going on a weekly basis. Into the program.
So you're working with people that have some sort of an addiction problem,
right.
and your hallmark is working with the whole family.
Exactly right.
Okay, all right. That's what I found so interesting. So I know that you told me there were 3 parts to your program,
yes.
So let's take them one at a time.
Good.
So let's just start with the first one, which was Recovery for Life.
So Recovery for Life, really our mission is for us to empower people who struggle with addictions and compulsive behaviors. And these are people who are trying to find freedom for their lives. Most of them are either what we call up and outers or what we call down and outers.
Yeah, I like that term when you told me that.
know, I mean, when you go to one of our meetings, you'll see maybe 100 people on Tuesday evenings.
Wow,
and you might
huge.
see everybody from a city official there to a homeless person and a housewife to a person who owns a business. What all these people have in common is that they've fallen prey and struggle with some form of addiction in their lives, whatever it might be. The other part to that is we have a counseling program, so people may come to me for counseling and end up at the recovery meeting, or they may come to a recovery meeting and end up in the counseling meetings.
Right,
Yeah.
Okay. And the next section is called Recovery for Kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, this is really amazing. 3 years ago, one of our recovery wives came up to me and she said, you know, I'm a school teacher. And she said, actually, I just got my master's degree in curriculum writing, and so here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to take your curriculum that you've written. I have a 1-year workbook that goes over an entire year for recovery. I'd like to take that and write that down to a child's level so that when people bring their children here, they're not just going to child care. They're actually going to classes. Mm-hmm. So let's say, for example, while little Johnny is in his class and he's 8 or 9 years old, and mom is in her class for codependency, and dad's in his class for drugs and alcohol. When they get in the van at the end of the night, little Johnny says, Mommy, tonight we talked about forgiveness. What did you talk about? Mm-hmm. And she goes, well, we talked about forgiveness too. Well, I'm supposed to ask you these questions. Mm-hmm. So many families are telling us that they have conversations they've never had before in any other circumstances because they've been in those meetings. So it's not just child care, it's a child's program. And we have a workbook now that they have developed, which lasts 3 months. And so we're hoping to actually use that and put that in churches and clinics and other places as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that sounds like a lot of good being done there.
Absolutely.
And I meant to ask you this on the first one, but I can ask you now. Mm-hmm. You have a high success rate of people that go through the program and are able to get off the addiction that they have?
We believe we do. It's very hard to really stage that numerically and to have statistics because of the fact that we are an anonymous program. So when you walk in the door, we don't say, give me your name, address, phone number, why you're here necessarily. That would break their anonymity.
Right.
So for us to be able to say, you know, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60% of our people recover would really be almost impossible. What we do know is with 100 people on a constant basis, we poll the audience. And 10% of those people have been there for 10 years, with 10 years of sobriety.
Really?
Yes, and all of those 10% usually are going to be the facilitators who lead the program. So everyone who leads our program, our small groups, actually came to us at ground zero.
You know, when you were telling me this, I guess I'm just naive. I was amazed that there's like 100 people at a meeting.
Oh yeah,
You
sure.
know, I just,
The truth
I
is,
don't run in the circle of,
Yeah.
of drug addiction and things like that, so I guess I just don't know.
there's a lot more than you know, my friend.
Yeah, so I just
I
don't
know business owners just like you that smoke pot every night.
Mm-hmm.
You know, same age, same, business stature, and they'll come to me and they'll say, my life's become dysfunctional, and I'm to the point where I don't know what to do. Or people will come to me and they'll say, look, our 16-year-old is in real trouble. We don't know what's wrong, but we know something's up. Can you help us?
Mm-hmm.
So it's very, very prevalent.
I know in this economy, there's a lot of business owners that are thinking of taking up drinking.
Drive you to drink.
Drive you to drink.
You know,
That's right.
statistics tell us that 1 out of 4 every American family struggles with an addiction.
Right.
It has been adversely affected by addiction.
Mm-hmm.
25% of American housewives are addicted to prescription drugs.
Really?
Yes. 1 out of every 4 people in prison are there because they got money for drugs.
Right. Well, I knew that one. I'd
Yeah.
heard that one before. All right. So the third area that you
Right.
have is transition home for hope.
Boy, this is a new thing that we've started 3 years ago. And my wife opened up a home for women who are coming out of jail or prison. And so we now have a home that the city is working with us. We lease it from Virginia Beach, and right in the heart of Oceana. It's a 2.5-acre farm. And 4 or 5 bedroom house. So we have 5 women living there, and it's just a wonderful place. It's an oasis for them to come for a year. You know, statistics tell us that the first 30 to 60 days after a person gets out of jail or prison are the most crucial. So many of these people, especially the women, when they get out of jail or prison, they are unwanted. Their families are not willing to take them back, and if they do, they're severely triggered by their family relationships. So we take them into the home for a year, and they're able to get organized. They go to the recovery meetings. We try to help them get jobs. And then we have a transitional home for men in Kempsville where we do the same thing for men.
Okay. Well, that's great.
yeah.
And I had down here that to ask you what types of people are good candidates, or do you see coming into your program? Now, you already said the down and outers and up and outers or whatever.
Yeah.
But is there a particular type or just anybody?
Well, you know, it's a little interesting because when you look at the addiction world and you look at anonymous meetings and different types of programs, you might go to one type of program where it's only alcoholics, another type of program where it's only narcotics, it's only, so forth. What we did was we said, we'll take anybody. And anybody that has an addictive issue or a compulsive behavior. By doing that, then we have in the same room almost anything you can imagine. The adult child of an alcoholic who was molested at a certain age, things like that. So people who are a good candidate are people who are struggling in life.
So in these meetings, you have everybody, all the different addictions together.
In the first hour of the meeting, we're all together. So it's kind of like, I always say, it's a kind of a cross between an Amway and a revival meeting.
Okay.
We're rah, rah, rah. We're building people up. We're encouraging them. They come, out of the 100 people, usually 25 will come up in front of the whole group and get a sobriety chip on a week's basis. And everything from crack cocaine to, I got a guy gets up and says, I'm trying to quit drinking Dr. Pepper. And people who are on heroin go, why would you do that? That's so stupid. Really? You want to try going for a week without any sugar or any caffeine, see how that works for you? And so it's real to him. And it's a very big deal to him, so he's struggling with that. And so for the first hour, we have traditional readings, we have the CHIPS method that we use, and then I speak on the topic of that week. So every 12 weeks, I teach through the 12 steps.
Okay.
The second hour is when everybody splits up into the support groups.
And these are all by addiction.
By addiction. So we have men's drug and alcohol, women's drug and alcohol, men's anger management, men's sexual addiction. We have codependency group for wives. We have a teen group called AMPed, Answers for Making Positive Decisions. And then we have the children's program, Recovery for Kids.
Okay. Well, that's a full house.
It's a full house, that's right.
Okay,
That's
so
well
how
said.
do they get in your program? Let's talk about that. So
it's
someone has a need or has a family member and all.
Yeah.
How do they go about getting in contact with you and getting into a program? Do they
We've
just
never
call you?
really advertised, but our website is getting a lot of traffic. So we get several calls a week from people that I have a loved one in jail, I have a son on drugs, I have a daughter in trouble, I'm on the street, whatever it is. So people contact us through the website, which is myrecoveryforlife.com, all spelled out.
Okay.
myrecoveryforlife.com. And so they'll contact us through that. But the main thing is word of mouth. So, Bill comes into our program, he gets better. By the way, my cousin John over here is in trouble. John comes along and says, well, my wife Mary's in trouble. Mary brings her neighbor. And that's how it's been for us for years.
Okay, well that makes sense. What's the old saying is you become who you hang around.
Yeah.
And so they probably know a lot of people in the
Right.
same situation they are. Okay, so this is a lot of programs, a lot of there's counseling, there's meetings, there's all this that's going on. How is this paid for?
Oh my goodness, what a question. I always tell people on my tombstone they're going to put, and the beggar died. I do a lot of fundraising, so I figure that, my day is divided into thirds. I spend a third of my day counseling people, a third of my day working on the program, and a third of my day fundraising. So we work with businesses. I had luncheon today with a business owner who I think is going to take us on as a project. And so, it might be $100 to $500 a month that they might give. We have families that will give us $20 a month. And then we have 4 fundraisers every year. And one of those we just did last 2 weeks ago was our golf tournament. We raised about $26,000 for our charities at the golf tournament. We'll have our banquet in the spring, and that'll raise another $20,000 to $30,000 for the charities. So by all those things adding up, and what we try to do to keep the cost down for the counseling program and for substance abuse classes that we teach, we try to just charge the bare minimum. So if other people are charging a certain amount, we try to go a little bit below that, and we have the ability to say, look, you can't pay this week, you lost your job, we'll help you out for a while till you can. And so by doing that, that kind of trickles in a little bit at a time.
Right.
That kind of adds up.
Okay, and I wanted to get to this before I forgot. You have a personal story, because I'd ask you on the phone, I said, how did you get into this? Because this is not your typical thing you get into.
Right.
Would you care to tell that?
Well, it's a real calling for me. When I was in high school, I was so desperate. My life was just so dark and deep and hurtful, and I had a number of things in my life that were factors that I just carried a lot of pain. And so at the age of 18, by that time I'd been doing drugs almost every day for 3 years. I was addicted to marijuana and barbiturates and alcohol. And finally I cried out to God and I said, God, if you're real, change me. I had tried to change. I tried to quit drugs several times because I kept getting into so much trouble. And I'd been arrested, I'd been kicked out of school, I'd had this problem and that problem. My dad and I were at odds with each other over drugs, and I was losing everything that mattered at that very young age. And so when I cried out and said, God, change me from the inside out. And when I did, he instantly called me to be a missionary. And that calling is what stuck with me all these years. I've just, we were in a church one day. My parents were very church-going people, and so we go to church all the time. I hated it. I hated God. I hated anything that had to do with Christianity. We went to church once, and the pastor of the church looked like he was 200 years old, And he came up and he said, now, son, we love you here. And I thought, I am very angry with that statement. It just infuriated me that someone that didn't know me would say that they loved me. And yet I couldn't do anything with it except say, well, okay, And that really was a kind of a step in my heart that God drew me closer to himself. For all these years, going on 40 years now, I've tried to be that guy to thousands of people, to just go up and put my arm around people that are discouraged and downtrodden and broken and say, you know what, we love you here.
Yeah, it's easy to tear people down, but it's actually just as easy to build them up if you wanted to.
Well,
So
there's plenty of people
a good
and
kind
things out
word
there.
or whatever can go a long way.
Sure, there's plenty of life to knock you down.
Yeah.
And I'm just not going to be one of those. I mean, when I have to and I have to correct somebody, I do it carefully, but I spend most all my time just loving on people and letting them know that somebody cares and that, what we do is different.
So you didn't have a big support system going for you. Not that God isn't a big support system, but probably the biggest. Huh?
Yeah, sure.
But I meant you didn't have the meetings and all of that stuff to go
No,
through.
we didn't have that back then.
Yeah,
It's,
so
the 70s,
was it kind of cold turkey?
Yeah, it was. In the 70s, and I had to change all my people, places, and things. I had no friends. When I stopped doing drugs, everybody just disowned me,
Right.
and all the things that we were involved in together. Now, with me out of the picture of that, there was no reason for me to be in anybody's picture. So I lost my friends. I had to get new friends, and my friends
Which is
became
probably a good thing.
Well, my friends became older people. I started hanging out with pastors and older people in the church, and and that taught me a lot. I even started singing in the choir at that age, and things like that. I had to change people and places, so I stopped frequenting the places where we were doing the drugs and the drug parties. It was kind of funny because I began to share my faith with my friends, and so I would go to a drug party. When I'd walk in the front door, they'd run out the back door. They didn't want to hear it,
Right.
They didn't care for that message so much. And I had to change a lot of things in my life. But by changing my people, places, and things, I got better, and I didn't even know that's what I was doing. That's what I teach people now.
Well, I know, and listen to the phone in our phone conversation, listening to you today. One of the unique things about your program is that you deal with the whole family,
Right.
because the family's an integral part of the addiction process, or kicking the addiction process.
Right.
And that you have solutions-focused thinking. So
Right.
you are always looking for a solution in your curriculum that will address the issue and help them work through it.
Correct.
And so you're doing a lot of fantastic stuff. Is there anything that I haven't covered that you want me to mention?
Yeah, this whole idea of really caring for people. We have a substance abuse class that we teach on Wednesdays, and I've written a curriculum for that. It's a book called 12 Weeks to Sanity, which is getting ready to be published. And people who've gotten a DUI, they've gotten a charge for drug possession. They've gone to jail. Their lawyers contact us. They contact us. They come to that class, and we re-educate them about the whole concept of drugs and alcohol. We make people make a vow that they will never drink and drive a vehicle again in their lifetime. Mm-hmm. And this is huge, because if I tell my class all the time, if we save one life, if it's just one person's life saved, it was worth it all. Yeah. And that's important to us, that we're able to help people by re-educating them. And that's a big part of our program as well. I just would like for everybody out there to know that what we do, you have to really see it to understand it. We could talk about it all day, but if you come to one of our meetings and see the hope, the inspiration that happens in those places. So many times people that come for the first time say, I never could have imagined a place could be so real, because we're real people. Right. And by being real people, that's what they're looking for. People are begging for somebody to not be fake, not to have some kind of facade, but to be real.
Well, you certainly sound like you have a calling for it, that's for sure.
I'm having the time of my life, my friend.
I'm glad you came out of addiction and found this as a path to do, because I think you're helping a lot of people, obviously.
Right.
And I had no idea it was that many people.
Yeah.
Until we had talked earlier. So if you find yourself with an addiction, or you have a family member or a friend or whatever that could use some help, you may want to visit the Recovery for Life website. The contact information will be at the end of this video, and it's also on this page. And we thank Paul Hardy for coming in. And thank you very much for being our guest today. And you're doing great work, and we wish you continued success.
Well, thank you. Go to the website and donate today.
Okay, you can go to the website and donate today.
Absolutely.
Thanks.